quiz you on interval training. Is it still the done thing? If so, what kind of stage of your horse's career would you start? How often would you do it? What do you do these days?
In the winter, basically. I do most of my riding in the winter, which is really a silly time to be riding, but it works out like that, you know, after Christmas, building up to March. And that's when I would do my interval training. But when you've got hills, you've got natural interval training, because you go up the hills and then you wait, you know, the pulse recovers as you go down the next hill and then up another hill. So.
And would you do it a week, a fortnight, a month?
Well, as I say, I always have a heart rate monitor running, and with the hills, you know, that's my natural interval.
So you
training.
don't go and do specific.
No, because I haven't got the ground to do that. But I know if I go up that hill and his heart's 90 at the end of it, and then the following week I would hope that it's, you know, slightly less or something like that.
We have gone off specifically to do some fast work because it's a lot of stony tracks where we're at.
Yeah.
So we may go to Escrick Park or the exception been up to the GG Centre north of York, and you've got some lovely gallops, and Caroline's taking me around there, you know, all the way around, you know, just because we can't do any fast council work where we are.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
not
really
really
want to go areas, but
Well, we've got the Transpennine Trail.
we are.
That's
yeah.
that's what I use as well as a fitness guide, because it takes an hour basically to go from one end of the trail to the other, because it's 17k. So if I can do that in canter in the hour, then I know that it's fit enough.
Yeah.
I have to choose my time because people sometimes get in the way.
And Jenny is doing a long distance. You don't need to canter for 17k on a short distance.
No, it's a measure. You know, all you need to do is the same bit of work and see the following week whether you get a better result or a less result. You don't have to be terribly formal about it. That's all I'm saying. You don't need the facilities. You can just make use of what's around.
Yeah.
We've never heard of interval training until we got on the Young Riders thing, and then we found we've been doing it for years. Like
Yeah, that's right. They'll know.
I mean, I know with Harry, he finds canter very, very easy, even if he's sort of doing quite a fast canter. And when I've had the pulse rate monitor on him, I've really struggled to get his pulse above sort of 90 in canter. But if I take him, box him over and take him on the moors, we'd be walking up a 1 in 3 hill and his pulse would be 190. So, you know, that's actually giving him a better workout than doing a load of fast work, and it's taking less out of his legs because he's walking.
Yes.
So, you know, it swings and roundabouts. But I mean, generally training wise, you know, whatever level I'm doing, the distances would be relative to the level. But I tend to ride about 4 times a week, do 2 long, slow rides and 2 shorter, more intense rides. And those shorter, more intense rides could be canter work or they could be a schooling session. And then he'd get 3 days off.
So talking about this is getting your horse fit, do you do anything extra yourself to get yourself fit, or is it just based on the riding of the horse?
So, well, what I said to you before, if you keep going, you keep yourself like that fitness, if you keep your horse like in a fit condition, like Jenny's horse, when she lets it out for the winter 2 months later, it's still fit, isn't it? It hasn't lost an awful lot, so it only takes a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, and then it's back on the top again. It's staying for yourself. You keep going.
Well, so when you tell you that 2 months, you are fine.
Riding does not make you fit.
No.
Right? It does not make you fit.
It keeps you there. It keeps you there.
We have to work harder.
I would suggest that you did exactly the same thing as a horse, and that is you go and do a few senior gym cards or go skiing or do different things.
Yeah.
So you actually doing different things to keep yourself supple.
We do a bit of running and we also go dancing. The dancing really, I found that really, really helps with my riding, because I've got exactly the same faults with the dancing as I have with my riding. I tend to look at the ground and, you know, the posture's all wrong. So, you know, that sort of coordination, whatever, really helps with the dancing and it keeps me fit. So.
Swimming, Pilates, yoga, stretching routines.
I find Pilates is extremely useful. Sometimes do some skipping, but it's always a great source of disappointment that riding doesn't make me fit.
I think riding keeps you fit. I think it keeps you supple. I think it keeps you balanced. I think it keeps you going. But I agree, it doesn't make you fit. I think
He gets fitter
one of
than
the
me, it's
exercises.
not fair.
If anybody's got a question.
Can I go back to the drinking? Just something I've seen, you give them sugar beet water.
Yeah.
How do you make up? What proportions do you make up? How do you do it? Is it just a bit of sugar beet with a load of water poured on
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An inch of sugar beet in a bucket or?
We use
Some
the,
horses like the actual sugar beet, you know,
Yeah.
the fibre.
Yes.
Some just like the water.
Yeah.
So you alter it.
So is there any particular strength? Because I know I went to one ride and she was offered 2 buckets, one was stronger than the other, and I didn't know
yeah,
if it was just how they made
we
it.
just make, we use the quick beat, and we just put far more water in than it needs. Sometimes we like the beet in the bottom as well, because they'll very often go down to get the beet if they know it's there. In fact, we train Carrie out far too well, because every bucket she used to put her head to the bottom, and her new horse has got all the breath, but she always drunk
Yeah,
from the
Spud's a
bottom
bit
of the
like
bucket. So
We've got this fantastic photo of Spud because he's grey as well, and he's got like beet halfway up his head.
He liked endurance. He got to go fast and then eat.
His 2 favourite activities.
So just a very sloppy mix, really.
Really? That's it,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah,
No
no.
special recipe.
No.
No.
Yeah,
As long as it's been soaked, obviously, for the
Yes, but it's
Yeah.
time, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's nothing
In fact,
really.
we'll put it on in the morning. If we're going to use it as a drink,
Mm.
we'll put it on before we set off crewing. So it's well soaked.
Yes.
And if you top it up, it will eventually become too dilute and they'll
Yes.
turn their noses up
Yes,
at it.
yeah.
So,
Same as most of it seems to be a bit trial and error, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. You say whichever horse.
It's a tempting drink. We've even bought apple juice
Yeah.
off the supermarket shelves and poured it in water. Like I say, if it is going to drink, it would be the monkey puddle.
nothing wrong with the monkey puddle.
There isn't. No, you
Out
don't
he
stop it. I
flies,
think
all
that's
the better.
So
Wants
as
to
long as
drink-
you get them to drink water, it doesn't matter how it is, even
No.
if it's just plain water.
just want
doesn't
moisture in
bother
them.
me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's whatever they'll take.
Yeah.
And if they won't drink, then carrots
My
and
house
apples
has
again.
never had anything but normal water, so that's what we're getting.
No, you
But you
just,
sometimes find that even if it'll drink normal water at home, it won't at the ride.
Yeah.
And you don't want it dehydrated.
Mhm.
So even if it only ever drinks
It's just-
plain at
You'll
home,
never know though, will it? Till.
you'd have to try it.
Yeah.
You know, if it's going along.
But
And
when he's
other-
been showing and stuff, he's always just drunk normal water.
So
so-
if we've
So
got like
even in
slosh
his-
buckets out
Yeah.
and there's sugar beet out waiting for somebody to come around and crew,
Mhm.
if the horse looks as though it's going to be having a problem, quite often Esther's sugar beet bucket is drained by another horse who's never had sugar beet before in its life but knows that it's good for it. It'll never have sugar beet again until the next event when it poaches somebody else's stuff.
and that's
It's
another
always
thing.
better if it's stolen, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if it's not drinking, I may put my hand in and get a scoop of sugar beet
Yes.
and try and offer it up and get some moisture on the lips, you know, just try and get them started, get something in,
Yeah.
you know.
If they're drinking plain water,
Yeah.
would you normally give them some electrolytes as well?
We do, well,
No.
don't put electrolytes in the water because it'll chance I put them off drinking it because they taste it. We tend to buy the electrolyte in syringe bulk, so they're halfway out, we'll squirt one of those in.
You have got to be
Depending on
yeah, you have got to be very careful with electrolytes though, because you can only electrolyte if
If they're
they
drinking.
are absolutely hydrated, because
Yeah.
otherwise you'll make the dehydration worse.
You shouldn't really need to electrolyte your horse.
Not
Not
At the lower
25 miles,
distances.
certainly not.
We when Ted Spinning does lots of shows everything, so we bought something you put in the feed like
Yeah.
a powder, so the next 3 days
We use, that's what we do at the end.
Yes.
We put it in, we use
So-
Sure Light, we put that in the feed.
yes,
So-
it goes.
Especially if they've done a long
Yeah.
distance and on a hot day, yeah.
I generally tend to make up my own by mixing half and half with normal salt and low salt, because that's pretty much got everything in it that are commercial. A lot of commercial electrolytes are rubbish. They're just full of glucose and nothing else.
It smells of
We've made it up
Sure.
using jam as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
High and low salt
Yeah.
into jam and made our own paste and
yes.
syringes and got it. And,
And they don't spit it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually I'll have you. Yeah, but you get most of it.
Yes. But as I say, you really shouldn't need it at the lower distances, not unless it's like really, really
Really
hard.
hard,
and-
yeah.
If I was decided to go forward and join and start doing the competitive rides, presumably I'd go in at novice level.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a horse, well, I have got a horse that I bought who's actually done some endurance at intermediate. Do we go?
You can still go in
still
at novice,
go in
yes.
as novice, both of
A
us.
couple of years ago, the rules changed for the better, I think, and basically you can only compete at the highest level that the partnership is qualified for. So if you're novice and the horse is open, you wouldn't be able to ride at open until you'd also qualified to do open. And even when you do qualify to do open, you can still do novice rides if you like. You know, like for example, the last sort of few years I've been competing my old lad because he was getting on a bit, although as I say, don't tell him that. You know, I quite often would do enter the novice class because it just gave me a little bit of extra time that I could take with him, and we weren't sort of pushing to definitely make the 10k. We could go a bit slower if we wanted to.
So you can drop
Yeah,
that
you
down.
can drop back down again.
And like with Spider, he got used to going out with Harry. And then when Harry started winding down, Spider had to then find his big boy pants and go out by himself. And although we'd done the training and various things at home with Harry, you know, he had to get used to being on his own. So being able to drop down and go down to sort of 8k, if he did decide, I'm not interested, I could get off and walk with him and still make the minimum speed because I was riding at novice rather than at open.
He's found his big boy pants now.
If you
Yeah,
want-
yeah.
if you
He has
want
found
to
his
do
big boy
25
pants.
miles, that's fine.
Yeah.
There's no compulsion to go up and do bigger distances.
Ah, right.
You can have a lot of fun. And I think if you win even a national trophy, or local trophy for that matter, just doing CTRs, it's consistency that's got you there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And I mean, that's the wonderful thing about this sport is that you can set your own goals. You know, I mean, getting Harry to advanced, I got just as much out of getting her and her old crippled thoroughbred, who was meant to be on death's door, round their first pleasure ride and passing the vet sound. You know, that meant as much to me as getting Harry to advanced. You know, so depending on the horse and depending on your own individual aims, you know, you can sort of take what you want from it, really. And, you know, what you'll find is that the other AGB members are just as supportive of you, whether you're doing pleasure rides or, you know, sort of middle distances or, you know, longer stuff.
Well, there are some people actually that always do this lower distances. Totally, you know, they're doing it for 10, 15 years and they still do it lower distances.
You usually find that they like going different places each weekend. And you usually find quite a few wine bottles outside their tent. And they have a jolly good time.
And that's the other thing, you get to ride in different places, but quite often you get to ride across land that you wouldn't be allowed to ride across. There's been permission granted for that day, you know, so you could be across some private estates sometimes, you know.
Or even, you know, if you want to sort of head out into the wilds and the moors and whatever, if you're going to an organised DGB ride, although it might be public land, the organiser's been out and risk assessed that route, you know, so you know that you're allegedly not going to end up in a, you know, thigh deep in a bog.
You know there's help not far away.
Yes, you know,
might
somebody
not-
knows where you are, whereas if you were going, if you're out and back there, you might not, you know, you wouldn't be able to recce the route beforehand, so you might end up in a sticky situation with your horse, because, you know, it might be marked as the right way on the map, but it's not actually.
Talisman.
Yeah.
So if you're making your way to a checkpoint and you're lost out upon the moors somewhere, like up in Cumbria that we've done rides up in there, the checkpoint that you haven't got through, they aren't just going to go away. They wait until the last ride is through. You know?
Can I just ask you as well about bits? Do you have any rules on bits and what bits you can use and can't use?
I think that most people in endurance are minimalists. You know, minimum amount of time you can possibly have on a horse. And bits, there is no rule.
So it's just up to you.
I think the rule is it's got to be a recognised form of bridle, isn't it?
Yeah.
It can be any sort of,
It
you know, a
can
bitless
be
bridle is
bitted or bitless.
Alright, okay, but just any bit, because I know my horse,
Basically, yeah.
if it was out on a field in a snaffle, we'd both probably end up killing each other. So. I know he needs to be in a gag, and like
Yeah.
with a lot of sports, like I can't do dressage and a gag, obviously.
Yeah, no, that'd be
No,
fine.
it's
It's
fine.
all right,
I ride with a gag,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's like most bits, it doesn't do very much if you're not doing very much, so,
Yeah.
you know, but you need breaks when you need them.
Yeah.
Most endurance people are minimalists, you know, they absolutely put a minimum amount of tack on that's necessary to get around. And that way they haven't got a lot of faffing around with lots of rails and things more complicated.
Oh, now I think like polymer out.
No.
Well, mine's
It's a
a
struggle.
MetLab bit, what they call a MetLab bit, and it's shaped so you can have it either on a snaffle or lean forward and stick it on the gag because it clips.
So yeah, I've got one a hanging cheek snaffle now, which is a bit better than the gag. It seems to be going alright in that, but I've not took him out in that, so it's just getting to know how he's going to go better, isn't it? Really?
It's all trial and error.
Yeah.
Trial and error.
I think
prefer
you
something
could
that's not
for
the
kind of a social ride, pleasure ride. I think there's no real intensity at that particular level, so you can go out and you can do
Just
your
try
own
different
thing,
things.
try your own thing.
See,
do your
with
own
the race riders, my daughter felt that hers was a bit of a handful in a mass start. So she hide and let them all go, and then try out on her own after all.
Yeah, I used to do that with Harry because there was no way
Yeah.
on earth. Yeah, I mean, you've always got him, but he just gets very, 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 very bouncy and
When
very
you've got a
strong.
few of them, it ends
Yeah.
up in a cavalry charge.
Yes.
doesn't it?
But I mean, you know, even on a sort of longer ER like that, you know, I would walk across the start line 10 minutes after everybody else has started and still, it's still at
It's
the
still
same
in
mode
place.
by the end.
Yeah.
It's pacing itself,
It
it's
is.
pacing
It's,
itself.
in that situation, you sort of, to a certain extent, disregard what other riders are doing. You're getting the best out of your horse that you can, and you go at your pace, and knowing that, aiming to finish, and to get through the vetting at the end, and then see where you are.
Another good old-fashioned bit of advice: ride your own ride.
Yeah.
And don't follow the horse's hooves on the floor, they might not be local.
And what about headgear? I notice you wearing like I have an
Oh,
ordinary
hats,
hat.
yeah. Well, no, I mean, those hats there,
Yeah.
I mean, they're cool.
It's lightweight.
Is
That's
that
it.
right?
You don't need to have the
Don't
posh
need to
hat.
have them.
Yeah.
There's no,
As long as it's
They're
got like
light,
safety.
they're up to
Yeah.
standards.
Yeah.
They've got, you know, ventilation in places.
Is that why?
yeah, it just makes it more comfy.
Right.
But
Stop
yeah, I mean,
hats.
the rule is it's got to be up, you know, it's got to be kind
You've
of
got to
but
be
that's
kind
it.
yeah.
Anything really.
And you don't have to ride with a hat cam.
You
You don't have to ride with a hat
It's the
cam.
current standards, past 15, 1384, etc., etc. You know, there's a whole list of them.
What it's shaped like is up to you, you know, you can have
Yeah,
it.
there's
But
a
lots and lots of
thing
people,
of,
you know, when you're out, they're
on the
all
wall.
wearing these types.
Yeah, I just noticed
On the
they've
back of
got
that,
Yeah.
it tells you which kind of hat stand
Oh,
you've
yeah,
got on.
but
Yeah,
it's
it's
just-
nice.
Oh.
It just says just as standard.
Yeah.
But there's no, I won't say there's no specialist endurance gear, there is, but you don't need it to start out with, certainly.
No, I don't need to. I mean, you'll see people riding in different things and coordinated outfits and coordinated saddles and everything else. And there's loads of different saddles which actually are specifically designed for endurance, but you can ride on a general purpose saddle, you know, it all depends. But, and it's the same as you're tacking, as you're going round, and if you're moving up the distances, you might find that you might want to see a saddle, try a saddle, a different piece of bridle. But you don't have to. You don't have to. I mean, there's big people at British Steve that just wore an ordinary general purpose saddle.
If it ain't
I
right,
ride
don't
with
fix it.
a working hunter, a Jeffrey's working hunter. I've got no reason to change it, so.
But there's loads of different kinds, and there's loads of different kinds of specialist kind of equipment and specialist saddles and everything. And some horses go well in them, you know, but some
Yeah,
horses
if
don't.
you've got to change your saddle, then it would be worth looking at it. But if you haven't, you know, if your saddle's working well, then leave it be.
If it's a horse and the horse is happy with it, it's fine, fine.
I've done multi-day rides in a dressage saddle that I picked up off of eBay for 25 quid, and it fits the horse. He's comfortable in it.
I think that's the crunch, it's got to fit the horse. If it fits the horse and the horse is comfortable in it and it's got no problems, then that saddle's okay. But you could go all hog and have full coordination and matching colour coordinated with the horse and the crew and everybody. And you could have huge fabulous set.
If you got the money.
eBay is my friend. eBay is my friend.
So from a crewing perspective, have you got any tips as to where the best place to crew is en route? Is there,
Well,
or do you arrange it before you go out, the rider goes out, you agree it presumably beforehand? But,
You do, you sit down and plan very thoroughly what you're going to do. But you'll find that a lot of rides now, there'll be designated crew spots.
Right.
Because you can end up clogging up all the country lanes
Yes,
with all the
yeah.
different crew cars and what have you. So, and I think that's better. I prefer it actually.
Mm-hmm.
If you go across into Lincolnshire, it's a lot more relaxed because there's a lot more wide verges and. I just tend to. You don't want to be too close to the end, especially on a race ride. I would have thought that you've done all that preparation. The last bit, you want to be back at base, waiting to receive the horse and prepare it for the vetting. Again, it's going back to knowing the horse,
Yes,
and knowing how often you
yeah.
feel it needs it. If your horse is going along nicely, there can be a disadvantage to stopping and breaking the rhythm. So that's when your rider rides past you after you've set it all out. You know, I don't want to stop. You know.
So what do you do in those circumstances?
You throw the water at them anyway.
So they'll hold a bottle up,
Yeah.
and as you're riding past them, you'll grab it and
Yes.
throw it on the horse and then throw it.
Right.
But so you're not.
You try not to
stopping.
hit your crew with it when you throw.
You're not stopping them, the horses prevents them. You're
Yes,
just kind of
yeah.
taking the horse hydrated and throwing it back. So,
Yeah, it's the comfort fabric conditioner bottles with
Yeah.
the big handle, a big opening.
All right, yeah.
So you hold it up with the handle facing the rider.
it just goes.
Yeah, when the crew's holding the handle, it makes it a bit more difficult.
Put it mostly over the neck and shoulders, or
Mm.
not the water,
Yeah.
that's it,
Yeah.
obviously not.
Yeah.
What about the quarters? Could it be in big muscles? Is that where you do?
There's conflicting views on that.
That's what I was trying to
yeah.
question.
And again, I think it depends on the horse. You've got some very big veins on the back legs, just inside the back legs. If you can get there, that's definitely good because it'll cool the rest of the horse. Some people go for sloshing the quarters down, and say the little half cob that I rode, he, water all over him, just wherever, because, just to cool his bulk down. But with a sort of slightly finer, more sensitive horse, then you might not want to, or if a horse is sort of prone to tying up or whatever, then again, it might be you need to cool the front end and stick a rug over the back end.
Spider hates anything behind his saddle. He will weave like crazy if you try and put anything behind the saddle. He hates it. If there's any sort of cold on his back end. So then if you try and do that with him, his heart rate goes through the roof. He just really doesn't like it.
We tend to go for the veins down the inside of the back leg and the jugular, where there's a lot of blood, where you're trying to cool that to get it around the body. But certainly all down the neck and the shoulders. And we have done the back and back end at times. It depends on the day. If it's a boiling hot day, then everywhere. But, you've got to judge it and take into the weather conditions. If there's a nice chill breeze, you can use that to your advantage. Just dampen the horse, and that breeze will take a lot of heat away. But that's when you start checking and putting a rug on if necessary. And it's very careful monitoring in those situations.
But we crewed for a lady who was from Scotland, and her horse absolutely hates and detests being cold. So you don't put any water near him at all. You put rugs on. Even if it's a baking hot day, you'll be putting fleece rugs on him. And that's just individual to him.
Yeah.
So you really have to read what the horse is telling
Just
you.
why you've got to bring everything when you're crewing.
I tend to, we monitor the heart rate, but I also tend to feel on the neck as well. If you remember that it's a warm-blooded animal, and see if it still feels warm. I've seen people throwing water on more and the heart rate's still going up. Well, yeah, it is. It's cold. It's practice, I think. There's certain guidelines. Think about what the objectives that you're trying to achieve, and then consider the day, and just give it a try. And just you see what works for yourself and your horse. Yeah.
You really have to take everything, because if you go to some rides, say down in Exmoor, one day could be 85, 90 degrees, and the next day could be absolutely silent and with rain, and then could freeze So, you know, you've got to have everything inside that car, absolutely everything.
Can have that at 1 hour and the next hour.
But you know, if you go down, right up at the top, you're going to come right up the bottom, you can do really well.
So the back of the car, when you've got your 5 different types of water, your thick New Zealand, your thin New Zealand, your fleece rug, your cotton rug, your sweatsheet,
You're going where everything is as well.
your spare stirrup leathers, your spare bridle.